keep in mind that the heavenly laws are no child's play. The punishment has to be imposed on someone. If you give your consent, I could punish you instead, but it would surely be different, Defui remarked lightly. I am aware of that. No matter the punishment, I am willing to accept it. The firmament stone glowed in vehemence. It had never thought that the Lord would go so far to protect Gu Shijio. Sigh. If only its master were here to see it. A rush of thoughts came upon it. My lord, you could actually request for my master to be reborn on this earth at a time which allows for both of you to meet once more. Defui paused for a while and replied faintly, Let her be reborn only to see me in my sorry state again. Firmament Stone was initially puzzled, but responded, so that you will not have any regrets. Defui hugged Gu Shijio and walked away. If it's possible, I hope that she will not remember me in her next life and forget me completely so that she may live freely in peace. Firmament Stone was speechless. After faltering for a second, the Firmament Stone caught up to him and braced itself as it said, If she forgets about you completely, she could fall in love with someone else in the distant future. Could you live with that? Defui stopped for a second. Just when the Firmament Stone thought that he would respond no further, it heard a faint and raspy voice from a distance. That would be great. But if she is reborn with the memory of her past life and still remembers you, or even knows the truth without any chance of making things right again, wouldn't she have to live with more regret? Defui froze in his tracks. Wouldn't she have to live with more regret? He was sure that she would. She loved him with her life and would sacrifice anything for him. If things would happen as the Firmament Stone had said, she would only carry her regret to the grave and let it forever be a sting in her heart. As for her memories, he would never have a way to erase it for her. Gu Shijio sat on a pile of snow and gazed at the sky. Why hasn't she died yet? Why is she still alive? She had thought that she would die without a doubt and never expected to be reborn again. Maybe she was not even reborn. She had left her human body on this frozen land. The last image that flashed in her head before she lost consciousness was being in a state of distraught in Defui's embrace, while her soul was escaping from her body. She sat there, contemplatively, recalling faintly that before her body was formed here, she was imprisoned inside some cloud. When she was imprisoned, she initially lacked the will to move or even think. A voice seemed to patter on incessantly near her ear, reminding her that she had broken some heavenly law and deserved to be punished or something. The babble drove her to exasperation. She wanted to shut that voice up and slap that person across the face. Then she was released from the place she was imprisoned in, and then she saw a rainbow of colors radiating from herself. After alighting, her body became full in its substance. She looked at her hand. It was smooth as silk and white as snow, with each of her fingers gracefully lithe. She looked at herself in a mirror and was astonished. The person in the reflection resembled the Gu Shijio from before, but much more beautiful. It was as though some beauty had taken her photo in modern times and embellished it with all kinds of special effects. Her eyes shone brighter, her eyebrows more elegant, her lips as red as cherries, the contours of her lineament more beautiful. Her body seemed to be enshrouded with a layer of mist, thereby emanating a strong fairy aura. She was wearing a green skirt that gave her an air of elegance. Had Gu Shijio become immortal? If so, what was all that torture for? A smile hung on her lips as she scanned the surrounding area. How long has it been since her death? This location looked like the place where she and Emo Zhao fought before. She stood up and walked around, finally ascertaining that this was indeed the place. The blizzard was howling furiously beside her. The stains of blood had already been concealed by the snow. There was a humanoid ice block not far away, which contained a person in it. She surged to the ice block and looked at the person in it. His debonair features and green robe made it certain that he was no other than Rong Jialuo, Emo Zhao, and taken over his body. After Gu Shijio fought to the death with him, his corpse was left uncollected and just froze. Gu Shijio put her hand on top of the block and looked at the person within. In a flash, white light began to emerge from her hand to melt the ice, rolling out Rong Jiaoyuo's corpse. She felt a stinging ache in her heart as she bit her lips and cleaned up his face. Eldest Prince. Recalling how she used to address him in their old days, her voice was faintly hoarse. I failed to save you in the end. She cleaned up his messy hair and apparel. He was the leader of a country, and she was going to send him back to the imperial mausoleum of the Facian Kingdom. Just when she was in the middle of doing so, she seemed to sense something. She raised her head and saw a middle-aged man standing not too far away, robed in a pronounced manner. He was robust in stature and possessed handsome features that seemed to conceal a certain astuteness. It was Long Moyen, Prince Long. At this moment, he was looking at her, astonished. Their gazes met. Long Moyen asked Shijio. As Gu Shijio did not look the same as she did before, he could not be certain. Gu Shijio never thought of meeting him here. What an elusive figure. Who would have thought that he would be here? Long Moyen took a big step toward her. Shijio, it is you. His gaze turned to Rong Jiaoyuo's corpse on the ground, and his expression changed. Your Majesty. He looked at Rong Jiaoyuo's wounds and tightened his fists. Who did this to you? Gu Shijio looked down at the corpse and did not answer. Rong Jiaoyuo had died in Mo Zhao's hands, and she had killed Mo Zhao, but at the same time killed Rong Jiaoyuo as well. Long Moyen did not cast any doubt on Gu Shijio, as he had witnessed her melting the ice block and extricating his body. No matter how you look at it, it is bizarre for the emperor of a kingdom to just come here all of a sudden and die. If it had been somebody else, they would have already beleaguered Gu Shijio with questions. But Long Moyen, being Long Moyen, did not ask her anything and only stared at her. He bowed down and carried Rong Jiaoyuo's body. He'll be taking His Majesty back. Gu Shijio naturally would not dispute with him about this, and nodded her head in appreciation and acknowledgement. Thank you. Long Moyen had come here in a carriage. He placed Rong Jiaoyuo's corpse in the cabin and invited Gu Shijio for a ride. Gu Zijia's eyes glimmered lightly. She replied swiftly, sure. Long Moyen's carriage was a wooden green chariot that was pulled by a snow-white flying lion. After the two got on the chariot, the flying lion expanded its wings and soared to the sky. Long Moyen and Gu Shijio chatted for a bit in the chariot. She finally knew that it had been half a month since her death. Long Moyen had been traveling around the earth and had come to this place in search of the gallbladder of a rare beast. He had not expected to find Gu Shijio and the now deceased emperor. Have you heard about anything unusual in your travels? Gu Shijio tried to get some information. She was still the national celestial master. Di Fui should have announced the deaths of her and Rong Jiaoyuo after he returned. The citizens of the three kingdoms should be in a heated discussion. Long Moyen seemed surprised. What unusual stuff. Everything seems to be calm recently. Gu Shijio paused for a while. She asked, then why were you staring at me just now? She thought that he knew she died, and found it odd that there she was alive. Long Moyen sighed. Your appearance. I found it hard to identify you. Gu Shijio sat in silence for a moment. You haven't heard any news about me? Long Moyen was startled. He sighed again. I've heard some things. They should be rumors. Gu Shijio furrowed her brows. What rumors? Rumors that you're now staying at the Lord's side, training attentively and disregarding all worldly affairs. Some have even said that the Lord had intentions of passing the mantle to you. Gu Shijio let out a laugh. He is the Lord and not an emperor. He can't age or die. How could he pass the mantle to anyone? This rumor is ridiculous. Long Moyen laughed as well. That's why I said rumors couldn't be trusted. Gu Shijio lowered her eyelids slightly and pondered. What is Di Fui trying to do by not announcing her death? Would he use that body to revive Longjinka? Did he remove the souls from it? As Di Fui could gather souls, would it not have been easy for him to retain her sense soul? Gu Shijio did not know how to examine spirits and could not detect if her sense soul was missing. She had to put the question aside. She laughed lightly in her heart at the thought of it. She had already died once and relinquished her body. She would have no ties with that person ever again. In that person's eyes, she should be already dead, right? Then she would not have to live with the identity of Gu Shijio anymore and could let go of that baggage. She could change her identity and her name and roam in this world freely. Prince Long, I have a request for you. Tell me about it. When you return, don't tell anyone about ever seeing me. Okay. Long Moyen was a bit astounded, but he was never the inquisitive type. He nodded his head and replied, all right. When he raised his head again, he was taken by surprise. Gu Shijio seemed to have already changed her appearance. Although she still had the same attire and makeup, her appearance was vastly different than before. He thought that he was caught in an illusion. However, she was still a stunning beauty. Shijio, this is? For now on, call me Chong Sheng. Gu Shijio stated a name commonly used in disguises. Chong Sheng. Long Moyen's voice rose quite a few decibels, and his eyes turned brighter as well. The realization finally dawned upon Gu Shijio. She had taken the identity of Chong Sheng and went on adventures with Long Moyen before. He still remembers Chong Sheng quite fondly. She coughed lightly and thought of a timely excuse. It's just an incognito name. Did it coincide with the name of someone you like? If so, you'll just think of another. She was not adept at coming up with names. Before she could think of a good name, Long Moyen cut her off. Don't change it anymore. This name is great. A lot of people share the same name in this world. The name suits you quite well. Gu Shijio would retain the name. She would not stay with Long Moyen for too long anyway. After giving Rong Jiloa a burial, she would disappear and seclude herself and not return to the Feishan Kingdom ever again. She could change her name again after that. Rong Jiloa was already eaten by Mo Zhao, so the person she killed was technically Mo Zhao. Anyhow, she felt sorry and guilty to Rong Jiloa, especially since she treated him as her good friend. She had to attend his funeral to pay her last respect. It was a long journey from the Iceland to the Feishan Kingdom. It would take at least 8 days to return to the capital based on the speed of Long Moyen's flying lion. That's not even taking into account the breaks they will take along the journey. Crowds of people began to appear in the distance once they left the abandoned Iceland. In the evening of the next day, both of them finally arrived in a city and checked into a tavern for a break. When they had some snacks in the restaurant, Gu Shijio finally overheard someone talking about herself and the Lord. In fact, quite a number of people in the crowded restaurant were talking about the two of them. You know what? I saw the Lord's vehicle yesterday. Someone initiated a conversation in excitement. Another man at the same table immediately asked, "Are you serious? How does it look like this time? Is it the same blue crystal carriage?" Of course not. The Lord frequently changed vehicles. This time, it was a purple crystal carriage. It was so beautiful. Sigh, I don't have many words to describe it. The first man sounded very excited. Which one of the Lord's vehicles have been ugly? What's there to be so surprised? Someone at the other table nearby interrupted. True. All right. Did you see the National Celestial Master in the Lord's carriage? Someone asked all of a sudden. Of course. She was in the cabin. Although they did not come out, the crystal carriage was transparent, so I could see her. The man could not stop talking. Everyone was in a heated discussion. Long Moyen took a glimpse at Gu Shijio and then pretended to ask the witness. May I know when you saw the Lord's carriage? It was yesterday's evening. The man answered confidently. Long Moyen had bumped into Gu Shijio yesterday, before evening. He paused for a moment and then continued. Are you sure the lady inside the carriage was the National Celestial Master? Of course. Other than Miss Gu, who else is qualified to take the same carriage with the Lord? They were not only taking the same carriage. The Lord even wrapped Miss Gu in one of his arms. Although he could not see their features clearly, he could see their figures. Undoubtedly, no one had the guts to judge the Lord, and they definitely did not dare to talk about the fact that he had such an intimate interaction with a lady. Long Moyen took a glimpse at Gu Shijio again. She remained silent and sipped a mouthful of alcohol as a smile grew on her face. It seemed that Di Fui had resurrected Longjinka. They even openly took a stroll on the street intimately. Perhaps he wanted the citizens to support her, and he wanted to acknowledge her as his partner publicly. However, why did not reinstate her original identity? What was on his mind to let her live with Gu Zijia's name? Perhaps Longinka was willing to be Gu Shijio since she accepted the body? But Longinka was also someone with a high ego. Was she really willing to live with someone else's name? In a similar manner, Gu Shijio did not want to live with Longink's identity, even though it meant that she could be the empress of the mermaid kingdom and she could easily get all the power of the mermaids. The pain inside was tearing her apart again. She took another sip of alcohol so that she could swallow the bitterness in her throat. Suddenly, there was chaos outside when she was quietly pondering. Someone cheered with surprise. "Look, the Lord's vehicle. The Lord is here again." There were many people praying outside. Hence, it was very crowded. The people continuously kowtowed while facing the statue in the temple as they repeatedly asked for blessings. Some are praying to get pregnant, some are praying for wealth, some are praying for love. Everyone wanted something. The scene was nothing unusual to Gu Shijio, because she had seen it multiple times in the current and modern era. She was curious who they were praying to, and her gaze finally fell on the beautiful and fine fairy statue. She had seen many statues of different immortals. Some were ferocious, some looked very kind and gentle, some looked very handsome. However, she has never seen such a beautiful and realistic statue. To her surprise, it was a statue of herself. It was of the finest quality and perhaps looked better than the real person. Gu Shijio never imagined someone would make a statue of her, and that people would worship and pray to her as if she was a fairy. There was a title for this deity under the feet of the statue: the Great Celestial Master Gu. Celestial Master Gu. Was it not supposed to be Celestial Master Lon Jinka? Was that specially made for Gu Shijio? Was that a compensation for her because he felt guilty? She heard that the credit temple could help to accumulate blessings for the person who was worshipped and prayed to by the citizens. Hence, it would bring her good fortune. Only those great people who have made significant contributions to society and saved the people from disaster deserved such a credit temple. The citizens would usually build a temple for them after they passed away so that they could continue to hear their prayers and receive their praise and gratitude. In fact, Neza I killed himself due to the threats of the Dragon King from the Eastern Sea. Thus, his mother built a credit temple for him so that he could receive prayers and blessings in order to be reborn again in the future. Was Difui planning for her to be reborn? Was that something he would really want? Suddenly, tears rolled down her cheek. She seemed to recall the moment her souls were broken into pieces and Difui rushed in to catch them. At that point, she could not really hear everything that was said by Difui, but she remembered that he was sobbing. She remembered that some warm water spilled on her face, and that was probably his tears. Difui was always a strong person. He probably never cried before. Even during their time together, she has never seen it. However, he really cried when he hugged her in his embrace. His body was trembling when he hugged her. She remembered he was shouting her name. She knew that he liked her, and she never denied it. However, she did not want him to be in a difficult position, and she did not want to see his hair turn white. After all, he has been planning for Lon Jink's resurrection for so many years. Gu Shijio was having a complicated feeling as she continued to look at the statue. She felt a combination of bittersweet feelings inside. "Baby, look, does it look like you? I made this by myself." She was shocked when she suddenly heard Di Fui's voice. She looked at Di Fui by following the direction of his voice. He was sitting on a crossbeam up there with her physical body placed on his lap. He was whispering beside the body as he wrapped one of his hands around her waist. Apparently, he made himself invisible. Thus, none of the prayers saw him. Difui lowered his voice when he spoke to the physical body on his lap. No one could hear him, especially since it was very noisy in the temple. However, Gu Shijio could hear it, and she could hear it clearly. Gu Shijio was now standing right beside the statue. She even thought Difui was looking at her when he fixed his eyes on the statue. She immediately went stiff and quickly moved away. She took a glimpse at Difui and realized he was still looking at the statue without moving his gaze away. Perhaps he could not see her? Gu Shijio had no idea whether she should heave a sigh of relief or feel disappointed. She felt depressed whenever she saw him because he broke her heart. Thus, she did not want to see him anymore. However, she had a strange feeling this time around. Difui made a statue for her and even asked the body whether the statue looked similar to her. Thus, did he think about Gushijio or Lonjinka when he hugged the lifeless body in his arms? She circled around the statue once again and turned back to check on Difui. She realized he was idling as he stared at the statue. In front of him, there was a 7-colored bracelet floating in the air. The bracelet was blinking as if it was talking to Difui. Little Tsang, it was the firmament stone. What was Difui saying to Little Tsang? Gu Shijio went closer to them, but unfortunately, they were using directed audio to communicate. Thus, she could never hear it no matter how close she was to them. In contrast, since she was too near to Difui, she smelled the unique fragrance from his body again. She felt an ache in her heart and quickly moved away. She took a look at the firmament stone again. Fast *RD. It even claimed that it was meant to be hers. However, it could not even sense her despite being so close to her. She could not help but take a glimpse at Difui again. He was still idling, and his gaze was occupied with grief. He sighed softly. In fact, I really want to see her again, even if it's just once. It'll feel better as long as she's all right. Unfortunately, it would never happen anymore. His voice was extremely hoarse, and he sounded helpless. Gushijio felt sorry for him. Suddenly, a question popped up in her head. Who was the one he mentioned earlier? Why did he say it would never happen anymore? The firmament stone was still talking to Difui. It was the one who suggested the credit temple as it might help to accelerate Gu's Zygius rebirth. In fact, they could simply get some workers to build the statue. However, Difui insisted to make it by himself. He made 81 statues in half a month and got people to build 81 credit temples around the continent. Certainly, he was very fussy with the location of the credit temples. Fortunately, all the credit temples were built in time with the Lord's order. Difui was extremely busy in the past half a month. Even the firmament stone did not see him taking any breaks. The wooden statues made by the Lord was full of spiritual power. Thus, the people were amazed by the statues when they came to the credit temples. Certainly, they would burn more incense and pray sincerely. All the temples were fully occupied. According to Firmament Stone, Difui could bring Gu's Zygius body for a stroll in the temple when the temple was occupied by incense and prayers. She would receive their blessings when she smelled it and would be reborn earlier. Compared to the old times, Difui would definitely think it was nonsense if the Firmament Stone suggested such things. However, this time around, he just followed whatever instructions were given by Firmament Stone, and he even tried his best to execute them. The Firmament Stone was fortunate enough to enjoy its role as an instructor for half a month. Its heart was racing, and it even felt accomplished when it ordered the Lord around. Difui was asking the Firmament Stone for the approximate time that Gu Shijio would be reborn. The Firmament Stone told him it would be in another 60 years after making a prediction based on its experience. 60 years was once a very short period to Difui. However, it was now a time period he would not be alive to experience. They would not be able to see each other again. He looked at the girl in his embrace and realized that he would never ever get to see her standing in front of him alive and talk to him with laughter. His fingers were gently touching her lashes. Softly, he whispered, "Shijio, forget about me when you come back, and live a good life after that." Gu Shijio was shocked. She was furious when she heard the first part of his sentence. He always wanted to be forgotten. Who or what did he think she was? A computer hard disk? Did he think she could just simply delete all the data in her head whenever she wanted? However, fear crept into her heart when she heard the last few words. He sounded like he was speaking to her for the last time. Or was she overthinking? She quickly took a glimpse at him again. He did not wear a mask today, and it was probably because he was invisible. Gu Shijun noticed his face looked very pale, even though his white hair was now black again. Besides that, there were 2 dark circles under his eyes, and his lips were pale as well. Gu Shijio wanted to check his pulse, but she realized that she probably would not be able to touch him. Was he too exhausted? It was rare to see him in such a pale appearance. While she was still idling, a sudden noise was heard. It was the voice of a lady. "Oh, what kind of temple is this? Celestial Master Gu's temple? Which Celestial Master Gu?" Certainly, Gu Shijio was very familiar with this voice. That was Lan Jingyi. She did not expect her to come. There were many prayers outside the temple, and also a few young Taoists guarding the temple. The young Taoist answered, "This is National Celestial Master, Miss Gu." Lan Jingyi chuckled sarcastically. "Gu Shijio, are you sure? She is still alive. So why did you build a temple for her?" The young Taoist was slightly pissed. "I hope you watch your words. I know Celestial Master Gu is still alive. This is her credit temple." Lan Jingyi shouted with a high pitch. "Credit temple? What honor does she have to own a credit temple? This is absurd. Let me take a closer look." "Hey, Jingyi, don't be reckless." Lan Yaoguang just arrived. However, he did not manage to supervise his sister properly. Shua, a blue shadow flashed, and Lan Jingyi appeared in the inner hall. She seemed to have recovered because she looked completely fine except for her pale face. Gu Shijio took a glimpse at Di Fui. He had straightened his body, but had a frown on his face. He looked upset. Lan Jingyi was so angry as she fixed her eyes on the deity's statue. Gu Shijio is definitely too arrogant. My brother Huang is such a mighty man, and he doesn't even have one. Who does she think she is? The Lord of the world. She is not even worth a speck of dust in my eyes. I just can't look at her arrogant face. She lifted her sleeve, and a blue beam was emitted toward the statue. She was going to destroy the statue. She was known for acting recklessly. It was too sudden, and the young Taoist did not have time to stop her. Even if he was prepared, there was nothing he could possibly do since Lan Jingyi was much more powerful. Lan Yaoguang just rushed in and did not manage to stop her either. He shouted, "No!" Lan Jingyi possessed a spiritual power of level 9. Hence, it was disastrous whenever she launched an attack. If her attacks were accurate, even the dome of the temple would be blown away, not to mention a statue. The wind was blowing furiously with an evil aura. Right before the blue ray hit the statue, a colorful ray suddenly flashed in from nowhere and engulfed the blue ray. The blue ray faded away as the colorful ray shattered it into pieces. In addition, the colorful ray was now headed toward Lan Jingyi. It was as if a colorful dragon crashed right into Lan Jingyi's face. She was too stunned to do anything. A loud scream was heard, followed by Lan Jingyi's body being thrown out of the temple. Bang! Lan Jingyi seemed to have crashed onto something as the leaves from a big tree outside the temple fell all over the floor. Everyone was stunned. No one knew where the colorful ray came from. Was it the statue? The people in the temple quickly knelt and kowtowed in front of the statue after a short idle. Lan Yaoguang trembled and looked at the direction of the crossbeam. Brother Huang. A man slowly showed up in midair. He was wearing a snowy white robe with a mask that covered his face. There was a 7-colored auspicious glow around his body with an extremely strong aura. The Lord. That's the Lord. Oh God, that's the Lord. The Lord came to this temple. Initially, the people in prayer were still stunned. After a while, they quickly knelt and kowtowed to him when they regained their consciousness. Di Fui looked at the people from midair. Slowly, he said, "Listen to this order. Whoever tries to destroy a single piece of tile or a tiny grass of this temple shall not be spared." "Yes, my lord." The young Taoists who were kneeling on the ground responded with eyes that sparkled. Who had the guts to disobey the Lord's order? A temple protected by the Lord's order was certainly an important venue. Hence, this temple of Celestial Master Gu would be more crowded than any other temples. Of course, no one would ever try to destroy anything from now on. Although there was a rumor saying that the Lord had done all the inspection by himself throughout the process of building all these temples, it was just a rumor. Many people did not believe it, and they even thought that it was just a marketing strategy made by the person who built the temples. However, since the Lord showed up here and he even ordered them to protect the temples, the news would be spread very fast. Lan Yaowang hesitated as he looked at Di Fui. Brother Huang, you build these temple for my sister? My sincere apologies. Jingyi was too naive. Please forgive her. Di Fui did not bother him. Casually, he said, take Lan Jingyi in. Gu Shijiu was curious as she was hiding up there. Di Fui used to protect Lan Jingyi, and he even cited her in front of Gu Shijiu several times. Gu Shijiu was very sad back then. However, what was different this time? Lan Jingyi just wanted to destroy a statue, and he launched such a powerful attack. Gu Shijiu guessed that the attack from Di Fui earlier might have taken away half of Lan Jingyi's life. Suddenly, Lan Jingyi was taken in by someone. Di Fui's attack took away 2/3 of her life because she had transformed back to her original form. She was lying on the greenstone trail in her mermaid form. The crowd immediately screamed and cheered. Oh, it was a mermaid. It was a rare species, and they finally saw a living one. The mermaids usually turned into human form when they went up to the land. Therefore, the citizens of the continent could not see their original form. However, there was one that just flew out from the temple. They certainly need to take a look since it was so rare. In the end, the crowd piled around and made up to 6 circles. Lan Jingyi's face was very red, and she was embarrassed. Her arm was broken, and 7 to 8 of her scales had detached from her tail. She almost passed out when she landed, and she could not even move now. She wanted to kill everyone who laughed at her, but she also wished to escape at the same time. Certainly, she wanted to find the one who attacked her. Hence, she immediately shouted when she regained her consciousness. Who was the bast *RD who attacked me just now? It'll definitely get Brother Huang to kill you. Before she finished, she realized someone had pulled on her tail. Mu Feng was very gentle. I'm sorry, the Lord asked me to take you in. Lan Jingyi suddenly laid her head down. She was very angry and ready to struggle. However, she went stiff when she heard what Mu Feng said. What? Mu Feng did not speak anymore. The prayers outside the temple looked at each other and then quickly rushed to the doorstep. As they saw the Lord floating in midair, they quickly knelt on the ground. They would rather kneel than miss the drama. Lan Jingyi tried to struggle out from Mu Feng's grasp. Let go. A man and a woman are not supposed to have physical contact. Mu Feng had no choice. Fine. He immediately let go, and Lan Jingyi slumped to the ground. Once again, she experienced pain. If Lan Yaowang did not manage to support her a little, her head would have crashed on the floor. Lan Yaowang was in a difficult position as well. He was the emperor of the Mermaid Kingdom, and his sister was his noble princess. He would have been pissed off a long time ago if his sister was being bullied like this before today. However, it was his sister's fault, and the one punished her was the Lord. He did not dare to speak more, but took a glimpse at his sister and then looked at the Lord. He wanted to seek forgiveness on behalf of Lan Jingyi. Brother Huang. Di Fui shifted his gaze to him. Although it was a very simple reply, that was scary enough to make Lan Yaowang tremble until he almost could not continue the conversation. Jingyi is still young and naive. Could you forgive her and spare her life this one time? Young and naive. Di Fui sounded unpredictable. 5,000 years old is still considered naive. The crowd who were kneeling burst into laughter. Someone chuckled and replied, 5,000 years old could be considered a great ancestor already. Great nanny, someone beside him said. She's a mermaid and she's different from you. Don't simply judge. There was immediate chaos as everyone was talking about it. Lan Jingyi was too arrogant earlier. She behaved as if she was the almighty god just because she was a princess among the mermaids, and that pissed the crowd off. Therefore, they were more than happy to laugh at her now. Lan Jingyi struggled to get up and lifted her head to glimpse at Di Fui with a look of disbelief. Brother-in-law, why did you do this to me? I just wanted to destroy a wooden statue. Gu Shijiu is still alive, but she built a credit temple for herself. How could you allow it? Even you don't have one. Brother-in-law? The Lord was the brother-in-law of this princess mermaid. It was definitely breaking news to the ordinary people. At this moment, Everyone was looking at each other with a shocked expression. Lan Yawang just could not wait to shut his sister's mouth up. He immediately yelled, Jingyi, shut up. Shijio is also our sister. She's not. Di Fui suddenly interrupted Lan Yawang. Lan Yawang glimpsed at Di Fui with his mouth wide open. Brother Huang, I thought you told us that Shijio was reincarnated from one of my sister's souls? She has nothing to do with Lan Jinka. Di Fui casually continued. She's always been herself, no one else. Lan Jinka has passed away, and she is truly dead. Just like how the other mermaids' souls have broken into pieces, she will never be reborn again. Lan Yeagang's face turned pale, and he took a step back. How is it possible? Brother Huang, I thought you said Lan Jinka was worried about you and your sister, and she was afraid that you might end up doing something silly as a result of depression. Hence, she begged me to design a lie, so that you will have something as your mental support. Di Fui explained in an icy tone. Lan Yaoguang stuttered, but there is nothing much for you to argue with me. Yaoguang, it'll definitely take care of you and your sister since I've promised your eldest sister to do so when she passed away during the battle. That's also why I helped you to manage all the administrative works of the Mermaid Kingdom and even helped you to ascend the throne. In fact, I've already repaid your sister since you have already dominated the entire ocean for more than 5,000 years. Lan Yaoguang remained silent. That was true. The Lord had been supporting him for a few thousand years, and he made the Mermaid Kingdom grow stronger than ever before. He also helped the Mermaid Clan to kill all its enemies. Even though Lan Jinka had helped the Lord before, he has more than repaid them. It was now the mermaids who owed the Lord. Lan Yaoguang was a smart person. Hence, he finally understood after a short ponder. The Lord probably wanted the mermaids to be loyal and take good care of Gu Zijia's body. Hence, he claimed that Gu Shijio was actually reincarnated from Lan Jinka. Upon this realization, he took a step back and glimpsed at the Lord. He sighed. Brother Huang, in fact, I'd still safeguard her body properly even if you didn't tell me Miss Gu was reincarnated from my sister. Di Fui's eyelashes flashed. I'm sorry about this. It was his selfishness because he wanted Gu Shijio to have strong support when she woke up. However, Di Fui never expected things to go in such a different direction. She felt hopeless and eventually decided to die, with Mo Zhao just to fulfill his wish. Although he was now apart from her, and she might not know all these things he had done for her, she would be reborn someday in the future. Therefore, he might as well help her to solve all the problems while he was still alive. Based on her capabilities, she might not even need to rely on the mermaid's power to unite this continent and rule it. Conservatively, even if she really needs the power from the mermaids, she would have her own strategies and did not have to become their empress. Lan Yaoguang finally got it as he thought about it. He had a strange feeling because it was undeniable that the Lord had used him. However, compared to the contributions made by the Lord, the exploitation was hardly comparable. Brother Huang, why are you revealing this now? Lan Yaoguang asked because he would not even know if Di Fui continued to hide it. Di Fui gazed down at him. Casually, he said, She doesn't like it. I need to clear her name. Lan Yaoguang smiled awkwardly. Indeed, Gu Shijio did not like to be the empress, and she has never acknowledged it since the beginning. He shifted his gaze to the statue and immediately recognized that the engraving was done by someone he knew. Perhaps the one and only in the Lord's heart was Miss Gu, his sister. His sister was just a buddy who could fight side by side with the Lord. When he was young, he did hear from his sister that Huang Tu was just her ordinary friend, nothing else. Back then, he was too young and did not know much about that. However, he finally understood. He took a breath. Brother Huang really loves Miss Gu so much. However, I really don't understand why you wanted her to misperceive that she was my sister in the first place. You even canceled your engagement with her. Di Fui casually answered. This has nothing to do with you. It was a highly confidential secret. Di Fui definitely would not explain it to Lan Yaoguang. Lan Yaoguang shook his head, and when he was about to say something, Lan Jingyi, who remained silent all the while, suddenly screamed. I've told you. How could Gu Shiju be my sister? She's just an ordinary human. How could she compare to my sister? She's not qualified at all. Before she finished talking, Di Fui launched another colorful ray toward her. Lan Jingyi was engulfed by the ray almost instantly. Lan Yaogang's facial expression changed. He wanted to stop it. Icily, Di Fui said, "Yao Wang, they'll take back all her power if you continue to protect her." Lan Yaowang was scared, and he quickly sealed his mouth. Lan Jingyi had a critical illness since young. Hence, she could not afford to bleed. Back then, she almost died, but Di Fui saved her life. However, Lan Jingyi was a troublemaker. She once fought with someone and bled a lot. She was supposed to die, but Di Fui tried his best to save her and even gave her the bone of a Heaven's Gift disciple. Thus, she recovered, and her power had since been upgraded. If Di Fui takes back all of her power, she would definitely die. Indeed, Lan Yaowang knew that his sister was really a typical troublemaker. She deserved a lesson. A moment later, the colorful ray faded. Lan Jingyi was twitching on the floor as though a fish has just left the water. Besides that, 2/3 of her scales were gone. The pain from detached scales was almost similar to broken bones. Lan Jingyi was sweating, and her sweat had turned into pearls that rolled all over the floor. Her gaze was finally occupied with fear as she looked at Di Fui. Icily, Di Fui added, "Lan Jingyi, I will spare your life as a favor for your sister. I'll take back your life if I ever hear you insult Gu Shiju again. Yao Wang, bring her back to the sea and never allow her to come to the land again without my permission." Lan Yaowang did not want to stay any longer. Hence, he quickly left with Lan Jingyi. The drama finally ended. Since then, all the citizens knew that Gu Shiju occupied the Lord's heart. Hence, no one would ever disrespect her. Therefore, her temple was so crowded now. Gu Shiju was surprised by all the new information. This was the first time that she found out that she was not supposed to be Lan Jinka, and had nothing to do with her. Di Fui and Lan Jinka were just ordinary friends. He has never loved her, and he did not plan to resurrect her. Di Fui did everything for Gu Shiju. She was the only one in his heart, and not a substitute after all. So why did he make her misunderstand his intention all this time? Why did he hurt her so badly? Gu Shiju had witnessed the drama inside the temple as she was floating in midair. She was shocked and confused. Her head was fuzzy, and she could not process all that information. She realized her thoughts were less clear when she was just a soul. Helplessly, she was still following Di Fui even though she was confused. Di Fui took her body inside a crystal carriage, and their destination was the next celestial master Gu temple. Did he plan on bringing her body to every temple? Whenever he arrived at a celestial master Gu temple, he would take a stroll in the temple with her body. This action was actually beneficial to her. He was sitting on a crossbeam again and whispered to her again. After that, he would just stare at her statue as per the usual. Gu Shiju was always nearby and would look at Di Fui or her statue. Many things were lingering in her head, but she did not want to process them now. Instead, she only followed him everywhere and looked at him all the time. They had been apart for half a year. Although she hated him, she missed him too. She almost went crazy due to all the recent incidents. She hated him and missed him. That was exactly what she experienced in the last 6 months. Now, she helplessly followed him around. She just wanted to look at him and never leave him anymore. In fact, she felt that was considered compensation for the grief she had earlier. She could recognize all the statues were made by Di Fui because all the artworks were very fine and detailed. Every single statue had a different expression and gesture. Some were smiling, some had a serious expression, some were happy, some looked cool, and so on. Every single statue looked extremely realistic. How could he make so many statues of her in half a month? If Gu Shiju still doubted his sincerity after watching the drama in the temple, she should be able to find out the truth just by looking at those statues. She finally believed him. She knew he loved her, and he loved her so very much. Since he loved her so much, why did he hurt her so badly back then? Di Fui, why? Why did you do this to me? She felt sore in her heart. She wanted to ask him, but he could never see her no matter how close she was. She had been following him around for 5 consecutive days. In the last 5 days, he never stopped to take a break, but insisted to continue visiting every temple. He did not even take a short nap. Although he was a deity, he also needed a break. When he was inside the carriage, he would carve out new statues for Gushijio. He was quite at doing this, and every single engraving was very detailed. All the artworks were accurate. She was always a strong and calm girl, and she always looked like a cold and tough woman in front of everyone. It was only when she was with him that she would put her guard down and behave like a little girl who would throw her tantrum and be clingy and naughty. He was the one and only who got the privilege to see it. However, he could never see it anymore. Hence, he had to engrave it. He would stare at the mini statue for a moment and smile every single time he completed one. Occasionally, Difui would kiss her lips and call her baby. It was a very simple action. However, Gushijio felt like crying as she watched the scene. Fortunately, she did not have tears in her current form, but she could feel all the feelings she was supposed to have. In fact, she had not wasted any of her efforts by following him around because she realized she recovered at a good speed. On the first day, her hearing and smell improved greatly. On the second day, she could taste the prayer items. On the third day, her sense of hearing was even more sensitive. She could already clearly hear conversations from 100 miles away. It was a night with a full moon again. Difui got the staff of the tavern to get everything prepared so that the 4 messengers could have a good rest. Gushijio somehow felt something was wrong with the 4 messengers as she witnessed them tear a few times. However, they always held it in and continued with the work assigned by Difui. Gushijio felt that Difui would probably take a good rest tonight. To her surprise, Difui made a table full of food and asked the staff to place it in the garden. He sat down with Guzijia's body in his embrace and looked up to the moon in the sky. He sighed. "Baby, today is the 15th of the month. You once said that 15th is always a day for a reunion, but we..." He paused. A moment later, he stuffed a pair of chopsticks into Guzijia's hand. "Shijio." He called her name softly. "All these are your favorite dishes. Do you still like them now?" Certainly, the body could not eat the food, while Difui did not dig in as well. However, Gushijio, who was floating around, suddenly felt hungry as she looked at the table full of dishes. Her senses were getting stronger recently, just like how she used to feel before she died. However, that was the first time she felt hungry. There was her favorite deep-fried tiger prawn, as well as sweet and sour fish displayed on the table. She could not control herself anymore and slowly moved toward the table. As she tried to grab the chopsticks on the table, she felt helpless. In the end, she could only go close enough to smell the food in order to satisfy her desire. Unfortunately, she was getting hungrier as she smelled it. She looked around and realized no one could see her. Decisively, she bent her body and took a bite. She tried very hard and could finally bite on the prawn's antenna. Hey, she could bite on solid food. Gushijio decided to try again. She bit the whole prawn. The prawn accidentally fell out from the plate when she tried to bite it. Sadly, Gushijio did not like to eat food that is contaminated. Therefore, she gave up on that one and tried to take another prawn even though the first one was quite a big one. This time, she gave her all and finally managed to take a prawn away from the plate after consuming all of her energy. Bang! A glass fell on the ground, and Gushijio was shocked. Certainly, the prawn in her mouth also fell back onto the plate. She naturally lifted her head, and her gaze coincidentally met Difui's shocked gaze. She was stiff and slowly walked away from the table after she stood up. "Can you see me?" Unfortunately, Difui's gaze did not follow her as she moved. His gaze was fixed on the big prawn, which had fallen onto the plate. After a short idle, he picked up the prawn with a pair of chopsticks. His fingers were stiff when he slowly brought the prawn nearer to his nose. He probably tried to smell the odor on the prawn. Gushijio anxiously looked at him as she was wondering whether she has left any ghostly saliva on the prawn. "Shijio, is that you?" Difui suddenly stood up and quickly glimpsed around. Are you here? The night was cold and breezy. No one answered him. He still could not see her. Gu Shiju looked at him from nearby. She could not tell how she felt at that moment. She was just right in front of him. She even answered him, but he could not see or hear her. Gu Shiju felt an ache in her heart as she looked at his miserable face. It overwhelmed her. In fact, she took a few attempts to return to the body. However, she literally bounced off it. She circled around him and even blew her breath into his ears, but all her efforts were in vain. She could see him and sense him. Unfortunately, he did not know she was just beside him. Shijio. He quickly cast a spell as he stared at the plate. Gu Shijio could recognize the spell. She knew that was the soul collection magic, and it always worked. Indeed, he caught a soul, but it was the soul of a kitten. The soul was slow-witted and struggled in his hand now. Difui was disappointed. Were you the one who stole the prawn? The soul was confused and trembled in his hand. Difui let it go and slumped on the chair. Idly, he stared disappointedly at the dishes on the table. Perhaps I've thought too much. I've hurt her so badly that she does not even want me anymore. Why would she keen to eat the dishes I made? Moreover, it's not delicious. Gu Shijio was speechless. In fact, she was sad. She sat opposite him and fixed her eyes on him. Difui was an almighty god. There were not many things that he could not do. Besides that, he was a perfectionist. Hence, he put very high expectation on everything he did. Unfortunately, he sucked at culinary arts because the dishes tasted normal even though he tried his best to make it. Gu Shijio always laughed at him when they were still together. She preferred to have a lighter mood with him. Back then, he hardly cooked. He would only do so to comfort her, and there were only a few dishes which he used to make. It was normal for couples to argue. Whenever that would happen, Difui tried his best to comfort her. If that failed, he would make a tableful of dishes to please her. Normally, she would just forgive him for the sake of a tableful of dishes. Certainly, Difui was a very arrogant person. He was good at hiding the fact that he sucked at cooking. Therefore, he only cooked a few times even though they had been married for 8 years. However, there were now 16 dishes on the table, which was too much for her stomach. Gu Shijio really did not know what to do at the moment. In fact, she could not even tell what she resembled now. She did not look like a soul. If she were, Difui would be able to see her. The night was cold. Difui did not eat any of the dishes but drank in front of the table. One glass followed another, as if he was flushing away his depression with alcohol. Suddenly, he took out a flute from nowhere and began to play with it. No doubt, he was really good at playing the flute because every single song he played was amazing. Every piece he played had been sung by Gu Shijio before. In the 8 years they were together, she had sung more than 100 songs in front of him. Difui was completely absorbed in the music and was not aware that it was already very late. Gu Shijio used to like to listen to his music, and she still liked it now. However, she did not like seeing him in this mood. Hey, stop playing. That's enough. You should take a break. Difui, you haven't been sleeping for a few days. She tried to talk to him and wanted to stop him. Unfortunately, he did not hear her. A strong wind blew and caused his robe to produce some noise as it fluttered. My lord. Mufong suddenly appeared in front of Difui. He looked at Difui, who was still playing the flute. Finally, he said, My lord, you shouldn't continue this way. You have to take a break. We still need to bring Miss Gu around tomorrow. Difui did not bother him, but made a gesture to signal him to leave. Mufong teared up and still stood there stubbornly. My lord, your body can't afford to suffer anymore. You don't have much time left. Please, don't torture yourself anymore. Miss Gu will be very sad if she knows it. I know myself well. Just leave. Difui spoke with his internal energy while he was still playing the flute. Mufong was still standing there. My lord, I'm not leaving if you refuse to rest. Suddenly, Difui's facial expression changed, and he missed a beat. Finally, he put down the flute and said, Leave. His aura was too strong. Hence, Mufong did not dare to disobey him and finally left. However, he did not go far away. He flew up to the roof and started to safeguard Difui. He looked like a stubborn shadow in the dark who did not want to leave. Gu Shijio stood there idly. She felt as though she was struck by lightning. What? What did "you don't have much time left" mean? What did move phone mean? She looked at Di Fui and realized his face was as pale as ceramic under the moonlight. However, everything else looked normal. She decided to follow Mu Feng and see whether she could communicate with him. However, she realized Mu Feng was crying when she arrived in front of him. He was sobbing silently. Tears were all over his face, and his nose was out of control. His tears just kept flowing down his face like a stream. What happened? What was going on? Suddenly, Gu Shijio felt anxious. She tried to talk to Mu Feng. Mu Feng, why did you say that Di Fui did not have much time left? What did it mean? Is there a time limit for him to accumulate blessings for me? She tried to think positively. Certainly, Mu Feng would not answer her. To her own disappointment, Gu Shijio was smart enough to know the real answer. She did not have a real body at the moment, but she felt that her heart was popping out from her throat. No, she must have overthought. Someone like Di Fui, who was immortal, would not get into an accident. Gu Shijio has thought a lot about Di Fui. However, she never expected him to die. She just could not believe it. After a while, she wanted to find someone to answer her question, but no one could see her. She finally thought about the firmament stone. Hence, she immediately flew down to Di Fui. She was thinking maybe she should try to communicate with the firmament stone because she was its master. The firmament stone was very arrogant lately. Since Gu Shijio passed away, it was no longer willing to stay on that body. Thus, it was quietly glowing on the table, now following the beat of Di Fui's flute. Gu Shijio flew toward it and tried to communicate with it. Unfortunately, this fella did not respond to her at all. She tried more than 10 times, but nothing happened. She wanted to kick the table to release her frustration. The firmament stone once told her it could always communicate with her without any barriers. However, it could not even sense her during this critical moment. Useless. Sigh. She would have kicked its asterisk as if she could actually use her legs. It was strange that she could use her mouth, though she could not feel her legs. She managed to pick up the prawn with her mouth earlier, right? Usually, Gu Shijio would never have any intimate action with the firmament stone. However, she could not be bothered anymore today. She lowered her body and tried very hard to pick up firmament stone. The process was truly an indescribable experience. She had consumed almost all of her strength to pick the prawn earlier, and now she was going to pick up the firmament stone, which was 10 times heavier and bigger in size than the prawn. It felt like an ant that was trying to move an elephant. She was not sure if she could even nudge it. Initially, the firmament stone was blinking as it was counting the beats. Suddenly, it sensed something and immediately stopped blinking. Instantly, it stood vertically on the table and checked its surrounding. Who is blowing at me? Damn, who is that? Gosh, a ghost. The firmament stone quickly rushed toward Di Fui and coiled around his wrist. In fact, it was not afraid of ghosts because it could always see them. However, it did not see anything earlier, but it could feel something was blowing at it. It even felt as though something was biting it. The scariest thing is always something we cannot see. The firmament stone felt all the jades and gems on its body were standing up. Hence, it quickly ran away. Gu Shijio was speechless. Damn it, little song. Di Fui was interrupted by the firmament stone and played the wrong key. What's wrong? Asked Di Fui with a frown. The firmament stone was trembling on his wrist. There's a ghost. Something is blowing at me and wants to bite me. Di Fui remained silent. He also felt something was strange tonight. Instantly, he looked around and asked, Shijio, is that you? It's me. It's me. Gu Shijio answered. However, no one could hear her. Di Fui tried to use a few spells. However, nothing was found. Gu Shijio was sad and helpless. She fixed her eyes on the firmament stone and felt like tearing it into pieces. This fellow was completely useless. The firmament stone felt cold. Hence, it coiled even tighter on Di Fui's wrist. I just feel something is glaring at me and wants to eat me, mumbled the firmament stone. Di Fui fixed his eyes on the plate as he sat there. The big prawn was still on the plate, but it was already cold. He asked with a dull tone, Shijio, was that you? If it's you, can you push the prawn again? Just move it again if you're here. He lifted his hand and tore a small piece of prawn meat and placed it at the top of the dish. He even warmed the prawn. Gu Shijio had the urge to do it because she could bite the prawn earlier. Gu Shijio was still upset as she looked at Di Fui. He used to tease her. Hence, she would not fulfill his request this time because she felt that he was teasing her again. Besides that, even if she could prove her existence, he could not see or feel her, and he would not even tell her the truth. In fact, she really wanted to know the truth. She hesitated while Di Fui fixed his eyes on the prawn. He even quietly applied a spell to restrict any wind movement. Unfortunately, the prawn remained at the same spot. Di Fui waited for a moment, and an expression of disappointment slowly appeared on his face. He sighed. I've overthought again. He looked very depressed, and Gu Shijio felt discomfort her chest again. In the end, she decided to fly over and pick up the prawn again. The prawn meat was much smaller now, as it was torn into two by Di Fui. It was smaller than a fingertip. Since she had done it before, she finally managed to pick up the tiny prawn meat after a few minutes. Di Fui was completely stunned. He looked at the prawn meat in midair. Softly, he said, Shijio. He stretched out his palm and gently placed it under the prawn meat. Shijio, you're really here. Why can't I see you? Gu Shijio's mouth was sore now. Hence, she let go of the prawn meat, and it fell on Di Fui's palm. It looked as though Di Fui was holding the most valuable diamond in the world. Shijio, are you on my palm now? Gu Shijio shook her head. She was not the prawn meat. The firmament stone was shocked. It quickly left Di Fui's wrist and circled the prawn meat. Master, is it really you? Did you try to bite me earlier? Oh gosh, you can just touch me next time. Why did you bite me? Gu Shijio did not bother it. Why would she use her mouth if she could use her hand? Di Fui took a breath. Shijio, can't you show up? Gu Shijio also wondered. Previously, she could move a hill with a flick. However, picking up a tiny piece of prawn meat was as exhausting as moving a hill without her spiritual power. Di Fui seemed to have thought about something. He lifted his hand, and it looked like he was performing a spell. Gently, he said, Shijio, could you go back to your body first? Gu Shijio did not want to talk to him in her current form as well. Therefore, she crashed in her body again with hope. Apparently, Di Fui had removed the barrier he placed on her body earlier. She should be able to go back now. However, the result was disappointing. Although she entered her body, she could not stay there. Di Fui fixed his eyes on the body and held his breath. Unfortunately, he did not see any sign of her rebirth even after a long period. The firmament stone suspected. My lord, do you think there are some other spirits trying to stop her? My master is so powerful. She will be a powerful ghost too, which can control everything. However, she seemed to require a lot of strength, even though she was just going to pick up a lump of tiny prawn meat. Di Fui answered softly. There are no other spirits here. He would definitely see it if there were other spirits. Besides, no other spirits had the guts to block Gu Shijio. He sighed as he sat there. Suddenly, he carried her old body. Shijio, follow me if you're here. I'm sure you're hungry. Let me bring you for a meal? Of course Gu Shijio was hungry. Otherwise, she would not pick up the prawn with her mouth. However, she had no idea how she would fill her stomach since she could not even eat with her mouth, given that there was a table full of food. Gu Shijio had overworked herself earlier. Hence, she was not only hungry at the moment, but exhausted instead. She needed a rest. Di Fui was in a hurry. He had already gone with her body right after he told her to follow him. Gu Shijio finally understood why she always followed Di Fui. It seemed to be related to her body because she just followed wherever Di Fui went with it. Di Fui did not bring her to a restaurant, but a celestial master Gu temple. Since it was already so late at night, no one was praying there, but a young Taoist was guarding the incense. The incense was made for praying purposes, and the fragrance lingered in the temple. Gu Shijio realized she was not hungry anymore. Perhaps the incense was now her food. After a while, she felt so much better. Di Fui was sitting on a crossbeam with her body, and that location was the perfect spot for her to smell the incense. Shijio, do you feel better now? Difui whispered. Yes. Gu Shijio also felt that was the most comfortable spot. She was too tired earlier, and now she even felt sleepy. However, she did not dare to sleep because she was afraid that she could never wake up anymore. She flew nearer to Difui. As she looked at the body in his embrace, she suddenly got jealous of the body. Difui leaned against the pillar behind him. Shijio, let's have a rest here. Although he said they should rest, he did not close his eyes, and his fingers were casting a spell. Although the body in his embrace was an immortal body, it was easy to decompose without the protection of wizardry barrier. He was worried that he would block Gu Zigius' return to her body. Hence, he removed the wizardry barrier and secretly maintained it with a spell so that it looked like a living body. Certainly, Gu Shijio saw the spell on his fingertips. She felt sad for him. Although she tried to go back to her body several times, it just did not work. Difui had been sitting on the crossbeam for the entire night, but the body in his embrace did not even move. The firmament stone was disappointed. My lord, I think it was something else picking up the prawn instead of my master. Otherwise, she could still talk to me even though she is only a soul. Gu Shijio was disappointed too. She could not communicate. Difui did not say anything. When the sun rose again, he got up and returned to the tavern with the body and then went to the next celestial master Gu temple with the crystal carriage. Crystals could gather energy. Hence, Gu Shijio did not feel hungry at all when she was in the carriage. Again, she followed Difui around for another 3 days. She realized there were 7 colors in the crystal carriage and every color looked clear. Also, they could gather different elements and energy. Now, she felt she was stronger, and she could slowly feel her hand. Inside the carriage, there were a few crystal-made displays. She tried to take the smallest one, and surprisingly, she managed to push it. Difui has been paying attention to his surroundings. Hence, he definitely saw the crystal move. He slightly closed his eyes. Although he could not see her, he could feel her existence. Shijio, I have no idea why you refuse to return to your body, but I know you're here. He smiled as he uttered gently. Gu Shijio has got the habit of spending time with him and looked at his face every day. However, what Mu Feng said about not much time left was still a thorn in her heart. Gu Shijio did not feel easy and wanted to know the truth. However, Mu Feng had never discussed the topic with Difui, and she could not see anything through his facial expression. Since the crystal carriage and the numerous celestial master Gu temples could help her recover faster, she tried to stay in these 2 places as much as possible. When Difui brought her around on this continent, she noticed that the temples were built at the places with the richest spiritual power. Every time she went to the place, her condition improved. On the 5th day, she was able to control her own hands. Although she was still unable to pick up anything, she felt good being able to feel their existence. She met her old friends here at one of her temples. It was Lan Weihu and Yin Shun. They came to the temple with incense too. Lan Weihu looked at the statue and sighed as she looked back at Yin Shun. It looked so much like her. Yin Shun, who stood by her side, also sighed. Brother Yin, do you know why the Lord built these temples for Shijio? To give her blessings, I guess. Yin Shun burned a fragrant incense and inserted it into the incense burner. I miss Shijio. Unfortunately, she has been with the Lord these days and does not want to meet us. I would have died without her this time. Lan Weihu was still frightened about the incident. Yin Shun patted her hand and handed her a joss stick. Come on, let's pray for Shijio too. Lan Weihu also lit up the joss stick, and she put both her palms together. Shijio, I have already canceled the engagement with Lan Yu. I never thought that it could be done so easily. After I woke up, Lan Yu come to me personally. I thought he was going to catch me back to get married. I was so scared. Brother Yin Shin even took him out to fight with him 1-to-1. I did not know where they went to fight. It was strange. Brother Yin Shun had a lower capability than him, and he was injured. However, Lan Yu was still badly beaten by Brother Yin Shun until his nose was swollen. When he came back, he simply canceled the engagement with me. She whispered to the statue and muttered about the story. Yinshin sighed and said, "Weihu, Lan Yu hid his skills. In fact, he is highly capable." It was only after they formally fought that Yinshin realized that Lan Yu's skills were incredibly high. He should be very close to a level 10 spiritual power. Lan Yu just said one sentence before they fought. "If you can beat me, I will cancel my engagement with her." Thus, Yinshin fought ferociously. Lan Yu was serious too. He knocked Yinshin down several times, and on a few occasions, he almost took Yinshin's life. However, Yinshin never gave up. Whenever he was down, he would get up immediately and fight again. In the end, Lan Yu laughed as he was bruised by Yinshin. He jumped away and said, "Fine. It seems like you really love her. You win, I lose." Yinshin was stunned. He knew that Lan Yu actually made a concession. He did not believe that and stared Lan Yu. "Are you willing to let her go?" Lan Yu answered in a serious tone. "Of course. If I want to get married, I can easily get a wife. Why would I force a girl who does not like me?" After that, Lan Yu went looking for Lan Weihu with 2 panda eyes and a green face. He told her that he wanted to quit this triangle relationship. Lan Weihu did not know the full story. In her mind, Yinshin was the best. After experiencing this incident, the two of them finally got together again and naturally did not want to miss each other anymore. Therefore, after Lan Weihu recovered, she got back together with Yinshin. "Shijio, I'm going to marry brother Yinshin. He said he will give me a grand and unforgettable wedding. The invitation has already been sent to your house. I'm not sure if you have seen it. I wish that you can come and host the wedding for us." Lan Weihu did not stop talking, and Yinshin was patiently listening to her at her side. Gu Shijio looked at the couple and felt happy for them. However, she did not think that she could be their host, given her current circumstances. "Shijio, brother Yinshin said that when we get married, we will travel around the world, and he will take me to the famous mountains and rivers. He will never bring me back his home, and said that he will never let me be accused again." Gu Shijio nodded secretly and thought that this was the best resort. Lan Weihu was always innocent, and she was capable of fighting with Yinshin's mother. It was best that both of them did not see each other. It seemed like Yinshin finally found the root of the problem. Gi Shijio felt happy, but a bit envious watching the two of them holding hands. She couldn't help but look at Di Fui. She was surprised that Di Fui was not there at this time. She did not know when he left with her body. Previously, she could not be separated from Di Fui for more than 10 feet. Once she exceeded this distance, she would be automatically pulled toward him. In the past few days, she had been inseparable from Di Fui. Wherever he went, she would just follow without her control, even if she did not want to follow. What happened this time? She quickly looked for him around the temple, but she still did not see him. She subconsciously went looking for his crystal carriage and found that it was gone. When she returned to the temple, she found that Lan Weihu had also left, and only the Taoist guard and other pilgrims remained in the ancestral hall. Gu Shijio floated around and was puzzled. She did not know where to go at the moment. She knew that the next stop for Di Fui was definitely one of the surrounding Celestial Master Gu temples, but she did not know which one. She sat on a bench with her palm, supporting her chin as she pondered. She was now able to sense her entire body. At this point, she finally knew that Di Fui had his own reason for being so difficult with her in the past. Maybe he was doing it for her. Nonetheless, although she could understand him, she had been deeply hurt, so she could not wholly forgive him at this moment. There was still grievances in her heart. These few days were tough for Gu Shijio. She watched Di Fui work tirelessly for her, and also noticed that he looked rather sad. Although she felt sorry for him, she also felt happy at the same time. She had explicitly told him not to hide anything from her. She said that she would like to face any challenges or difficulties together with him. However, he still chose to take it alone and deliberately hurt her. Had he tasted the bitterness now? Was it because of his inevitable disaster? Was he really going to die? It was impossible. She remembered the firmament stone used to tell her that the Lord was immortal and would never get old. Besides, even if he died, he could resurrect himself. She remembered that Difui told her before that once he died in one identity, he would let go of that identity and make a new body after he rested for a few years moreover. What did Mo Zhao mean when he said it is actually you? Before he died? He also asked her if she understood the astrological map. Was there any hint in the astrological map? Gu Shijiu jumped in excitement. She was going to check the astrological map right away. Gu Zijia's sudden excitement soon turned into sadness. She actually could not leave the temple. There seemed to be a wizardry barrier that trapped her in this hall. The closest astrological map to her was a celestial master's house, which was located in the Feishan Kingdom. It was 1,000 miles away from here. Gu Shijiu was trapped here for 6 days. Unfortunately, Difui did not come to this temple again since his last visit. She only heard about him from the words of the pilgrims. They talked about which country he appeared in lately and the sensational scenes that he created. Furthermore, the people who used to be close with her had become legends now that were talked about by others. Unfortunately, Gu Shijiu could not tell the accuracy of the information. For example, some people said that the Lord personally went to the Tianwen clan. It was said that the overlord of the Tianwen clan had made a big mistake and had to be punished. The Lord personally sent him in for punishment, and when Long Sai came out, he almost lost his life. Besides that, the frequency of the Lord's appearances dropped in the previous days. He only appeared twice in 6 days. Once was in the Haoyue Kingdom, and another time in the Tianwen clan. Instead of riding a crystal carriage, he now used a red jade car, so no one knew if Celestial Master Gu was inside the vehicle or not. There were so many different stories which made Gu Shijiu anxious. It was as if she was suffering from heartburn. The gossips reminded her of the punishment suffered by Long Sai. Seemingly, it was because of her. Although she tried hard, she did not completely waive his punishment before she died. At that time, Difui promised to punish Long Sai and send him to the distant Fire Land for only 3 hours. After that, a lot of things happened, and Gu Shijiu had forgotten about the matter. She thought that Difui would forget about it. After all, she was dead. This person was really strictly impartial. She was even more desperate to get out of this place now. Upon checking the wizardry barrier, she found that it seemed to be weaker. However, she was in no condition to break it now. While she was busy trying, she heard a whisper around her ears. You don't have to try anymore. If you want to get out from here, you should practice more frequently. You will be able to get out in 40 or 50 years. The voice was fluttering, and she could not differentiate if it was a male or female. She could not even guess if it was a young or old person's voice. The voice sounded like the voice she heard when she acted against destiny. At that time, she slapped the person away and fell from the clouds. She then stayed beside Difui for a long time. Was she trapped again? Who are you? Gu Shijiu asked. You don't have to know who I am. You should only practice as needed. Gu Shijiu sneered. I am very annoyed. Are you the Heavenly Order? She could vaguely remember that when she was shackled in the clouds, the voice said that she had violated a heavenly law. No, I'm just a messenger of the Heavenly Order. I'm also a supervisor. Gu Shijiu felt a little surprised, and then she sneered again. In fact, I've been wondering, what did I do wrong? Since you are here, can you explain it to me? Chapter 1746. Gu Shijiu had not paid much attention to the messenger while she was stuck in the clouds, but this time was different. She had to know. The messenger was silent at first, but finally spoke. You shouldn't be dead. I am dead because of my fight with the omen, right? If I didn't use this method, I couldn't kill him. I killed him for the good sake of people. It cannot be a sin, right? The messenger sighed. In fact, you did not have to kill him. Huang Tu could have settled him. Gu Shijiu was noticeably disappointed. So you people already decided who should settle the omen? Could the omen only be destroyed by the Lord? Is it a violation against the heavens for anyone else to do so? That is not the case. But with the omen's ability, only the Lord could have defeated him. But I am the one who killed him. Is he not dead yet? He is dead, but you also sacrifice your life. The voice grew softer. Gu Shijiu was angry. Was it a mistake for her to sacrifice her life to save the world? I think it is worthy to use my little life to change the life of everyone in the world. No, it was not worth the trouble. Your life is worth more than him. Gu Shijio was speechless. Was her life more valuable than the omen? How could that be the case? She was just an ordinary celestial master. She was not even a heaven's gift disciple. Did she have a hidden identity? Suddenly, Gu Shijio seemed to have a minor heart attack. She remembered the two brightest stars that she saw when she accompanied Di Fui in his house before. It seemed to have a link to her. She said that she would look out for the world with him, and not be a bird that was protected under his wings. Was her identity really comparable with Di Fui's? Why do you say this? She wanted the truth. This time, the messenger was silent for a long time. When you get out after 40 or 50 years, you will understand. 40 or 50 years? She could not wait that long. She seemed to think of something. She tried to ask indirectly, is it true that the world cannot have two sons, and that the people cannot have two lords? The messenger seemed stunned. Before she waited for the voice to speak, Gu Shijio continued, since you are a messenger of heavenly order, you should not lie, right? The messenger could not continue, and it did not respond to her. However, Gu Shijio did not need an answer. Her heart sank. Silence at this time was almost equivalent to acknowledgement. Am I the new lord in future? Her voice sounded shaky. It was definitely not something she looked forward to doing. How could she guess it so quickly? The messenger did not even tell her anything. Anyway, it continued to remain silent. Will I replace him? Replace the lord, Huang Tu? The questions asked by Gu Shijio were getting sharper, and it was close to the core of the problem. Some key points that she could not think of seemed to be resolved. However, this was not something she personally wanted. She felt like she was being engulfed by a black hole. The truth that she managed to unravel was too cruel. She actually wanted to hear the voice to deny it. She would even laugh when it did. Sadly, no such thing happened. Instead, Mu Feng's words floated in her heart. He was running out of time. Is he going to die when I resurrect? Gu Shijio asked a question that she barely dared to ask. After asking this question, she subconsciously held her breath. The voice still did not speak. Her heart and body froze, and her mind went blank. It felt like she was walking into an ice cave during the winter. If that's the case, I don't want to resurrect. If she could trade her life for his, she would do it in a heartbeat. This is not under your control. His destiny has been fixed. It has nothing to do with your resurrection. If you practice diligently, you may be able to resurrect after 40 or 50 years. If you are lazy, you will only resurrect in 400 or 500 years. You can't really change that. You will be punished again if you decide to do otherwise. Gu Shijio remained silent. She hated the heavens for the first time. She closed her eyes slightly and asked, what is God's intention? Who decided it? The messenger chuckled. All you humans know that no one can go against God's will. Even the fairies of the upper bound can't. Don't have second thoughts. Gu Shijio remained silent for a moment. Later, she asked, is it true that I am not fated to be with him? The voice went silent again. They really should not be together. Di Fui had to pay a hefty price for breaking the heavenly laws. He had acted against the will of God several times. It was almost impossible for him to master his own fate now. How many years does he still have? 50? 60? Gu Shijio continued to ask because she wanted to know if she could see him again before he died. At least he would not have to die alone. Furthermore, they would not let him die before she resurrected, right? The messenger sighed softly. You don't have to know the answer to that question. Both of you will never see each other again. You should start to think about you are going to govern this world after your resurrection. Gu Shijio felt as though she had been punched in the face. They had no change to meet each other again. Did that mean he did not even have 40 to 50 years left? How long does he have? I just want to know how long. The voice did not respond. Gu Shijio was very frustrated. Tell me, how long does he have? The image of Di Fui's pale face and his white hair flashed in her mind. Her hands and feet began to tremble. had he entered into the last phase of his life. Gu Shijio became more forceful. You don't want to say? If you don't say, I am not going to practice, even if I am resurrected, I will not do anything. I will turn into a demon and destroy the world. I will do it. The voice seemed to have regretted telling her so much. It coldly said, if you become a demon, you will be punished. Gu Zijia's brain could not think rationally anymore. She blurted, it doesn't matter. I'm not afraid of death. Do you think I will be afraid of your punishment? How many years does he have? 30 or 40 years? The voice finally answered, no, not so many. Gu Zijia's heart sank again. 20 or 30 years. You have to give me time for a handover, right? There will be an interim lord. You don't have to associate with him. Gu Shijio remained silent for a moment. Interim lord? Someone can act on my behalf. The voice did not speak. Gu Shijio reluctantly took a breath. There will be many things that he needs to teach the interim lord, and it will take many years. I feel at least 10 years or more. Does he have a decade remaining? The voice sighed. It seemed to be reluctant. Gu Shijio was anxious. How can you be so hesitant? Since I am the future lord, I should have the right to know the secrets of the heavens. The voice remained silent. According to the rules, even if it tells her now, it was not considered as leaking any secrets. Therefore, the messenger decided to speak. It spoke emotionlessly, less than half a year. You should forget about him. It's better for you. Gu Shijio lost her mind momentarily. She was going to go crazy. Meanwhile, Long Sai looked at the apparently stiff body in front of him. He was unusually angry. It was Gu Zijia's body. It was brought by Di Fui. This guy had been carrying the corpse with him every day to show their love in front of the public. Finally, the body had disintegrated, and now he had to look for Long Sai. Long Sai could save severely wounded people, but what could he do with a corpse that had turned hard? He looked up at Di Fui. Di Fui was wearing a mask, so he could not see his expression, but only a pair of eyes that looked as deep as the sea. Di Fui seemed to carry little hope, and deemed Long Sai as a savior. Is there a way to recover it? Long Sai's voice was flat and cold. If this body was directly put into a crystal coffin and maintained with a secret method, it could probably be kept forever. But now, if I estimate correctly, it will be rotten in 3 days. Di Fui was shocked by the response. He took a step back and looked at the corpse. In fact, he had always used the secret method to maintain this body, so that the body could maintain its necessary vitality. He wanted to wait for Gu Shijio to resurrect in this body in future. He did not expect that this body would suddenly rot. More terribly, he could still feel her existence a few days ago. However, these few days, he suddenly could not feel it. If the firmament stone never told him that Gu Shijio would resurrect after 40 or 50 years, Di Fui would definitely feel desperate. It turned out that he could not help her even with her original body. Long Sai's heart was also very uncomfortable. He had already felt like dying and could hardly find the meaning of life. Seeing Di Fui come with this corpse did not help at all. He was at his lowest point. He disregarded the fact that Di Fui was the highly respected lord and scolded him for a long while to release the anger in his heart. Di Fui listened silently. He sat there and did not debate. Long Sai felt that it was all meaningless despite venting his anger for some time. Even if he continued scolding him, there was nothing he could do, and Gu Shijio would never come back. He looked at the body and sighed. Let her go into the earth for peace. In our modern world, it is important for the dead to go back to the earth peacefully. The firmament stone wondered what that meant. However, it did not dare to make any noise. It was its idea to create a crystal carriage in the temples. In the end, they could not resurrect her, and now even her body could not be salvaged. Di Fui sat there patiently, and then faintly said, "All right, I will bury it. However, Long Sai, you should receive your punishment now. Please go into the distant fireland for 3 hours. Do not weasel out before the time is up. After you come out, I will tell you news about Gu Shijio. I am sure that you will want to hear it. He was quite good at keeping people in suspense. At first, Longside did plan to die in the distant Fireland. But after he listened to that sentence, his heart was lifted. He could not wait to learn the information immediately. However, he also knew that Defui would not tell him right away. He would not make it so easy. Thus, he decided not to ask, but immediately went into the distant Fireland to get his punishment. The punishment in the distant Fireland was like being forced to dismantle your own bones. The fire was ignited from the inside of the body and burned through every inch of his veins. One would feel as though their entire body had been thrown into the steel-making furnace. When he came out, he had already lost half of his life and almost could not stand properly. What he did not expect was that Defui had been waiting outside. When Defui saw him coming out, he looked at him from head to toe and then personally checked his pulse. Longside was a little surprised and frowned. "What are you doing?" Defui loosened his hand and faintly said, "There is no remnant of Long Fan in your body anymore." Longside was shocked. Had Long Fan's remnant always been in his body? How could he not know? His soul was stronger than yours. If I had not used my power to seal him within you, you would probably have already been consumed by him. The fire from the distant Fireland is spiritual fire, and it is the best for calcining the soul. I did not remind you of that up front, because I did not want to let Long Fan's soul in your body know about it. He did not know the function of distant Fireland. After Defui finished his sentence, he threw a few bottles of medicine to Longside. The medicine in the blue bottle is used to cure burns. The medicine in the red and green bottles will help you recover faster. If you take them in the right dosage, you will be back to a level 9 spiritual power after 1 year. Longside held the bottles in his hand. He did not expect such treatment from Defui. However, he had not forgotten what he wanted to know either. "You said that you will tell me the news of Shijio. What news is that?" "She will resurrect. So, you have to be stronger." Defui finished this sentence and left together with the body. Longside's heart almost jumped out of his chest. Shijio will return? Was it true? She had apparently lost her soul during the battle with the Omen. Would Defui fool him? Although Defui did not understand boundaries, he never lied on important matters. Yeah, Shijio would be resurrected. Thus, Longside had to grow stronger. Only if he was strong enough could he help her when she was in trouble. He had to work harder. Despite almost dying, Longside was motivated and full of energy now. He disregarded the pain and spun around in the house like a child. Suddenly, he paused and remembered that he had not asked the critical question. When would Shijio resurrect? Defui had already left, so he was not able to ask him. Longside's eldest disciple could not help but show concern for his master. "Master, you are badly injured. Shouldn't you rest first?" When Defui sent Longside for punishment, he announced it in front of the disciples of the Tianwen clan, and he sent him in front of everyone. Therefore, Longside's disciples were quite worried about him. Longside took a deep breath. His disciple was right. He should rest. He needs to quickly recover. No matter when Gu Shijio would be resurrected, he would patiently wait for the day she returned. A handful of lust gradually covered the crystal coffin. It also concealed the once beautiful girl who was placed inside the coffin. The firmament stone wandered around the crystal coffin. It was very sad. It spoke in Defui's mind. "My master does not like the dark. Do we have to bury her underground?" Defui's face was pale, but he did not say a word. He seldom spoke lately, unless it was necessary for him to give an order to other people. Otherwise, he would keep his mouth sealed for an entire day. "My lord, after a few decades, do you think my master will climb out from the soil?" The firmament stone was anxious. It heard a lot of stories about zombies. It pictured Gu Shijio climbing out of her coffin like a zombie and could not accept that image. Although the firmament stone knew the heavenly secret that its master would be resurrected after 38 years, it did not know how she would be revived. Perhaps, to punish Gu Shijio, it would let her climb out in the form of a zombie before becoming a normal person. Defui still did not answer the firmament stone. He continued to slowly build a grave for Gu Shijio. The place was surrounded by mountains and rivers. It was an excellent place for burial with good feng shui. This place was referred to as the legendary Dragon Lair 1. Even though Di Fui knew that Gu Zijia's body was only a shell without a soul, as long as it was about her, he could tolerate any sloppiness. There would be special guards in this place, so that no one would steal the body. He only hoped that she could get peace in these decades after the body was buried. Di Fui took out his flute and played a song. The music fluttered into the air like a lullaby. After he finished one song, he smashed the flute in front of her grave. The white jade flute shattered on the ground. The firmament stone was shocked by what it witnessed. It looked at Di Fui and naturally understood what he meant. His flute was one of Gu Zijia's favorite things. Now that she was no longer here, he would never play the flute again. Boya, the ancient singer, smashed his piano to say goodbye to his soulmate. The Lord broke his flute to say goodbye to his lover. Di Fui looked at the sky. At this moment, the sun was half set, and the clouds had turned golden red by the setting sun. It was quite a spectacular scene. Usually, it was normal for him to watch the sunrise and sunset. Even if the scenery were spectacular, he would get bored since he had seen it for thousands of years. The beauty of nature could no longer amaze him. But now he looked at the half-falling sunset and had a nostalgic feeling. He really wanted to live longer, even if it was only until the day of her resurrection. It would mean the world to him, even if he could just see her from afar. When he was about to turn around, he suddenly saw a stream of colorful lights in the air. It was like an aurora swaying in the sky. It made the sunset glow redder, and the clouds looked more magnificent. It was breathtaking. Because the lights were mixed with the light of the setting sun, Di Fui did not see clearly how many colors were present, but he suspected that there were at least 5. Had the interim lord finally come? His fingers clenched slightly. In fact, he did not want to teach his skills to the interim lord. After all, the power would shake people's heart. If the interim lord acted on behalf of Gu Shijio for too long, he or she might not want to let go of the power. When Gu Shijio took over, there might be a lot of trouble. The firmament stone stood upright in awe of the lights. My lord, this should be because of the interim lord. Let's go and take a look. To have a proper handover, Di Fui had to be by the interim lord's side and personally guide him for more than 3 months. Di Fui only had 3 months left, so they should not waste any more time. Di Fui took a deep breath. He knew that he should not delay it. He had never prioritized the heavenly laws, and he had even violated them before. But this time, it was a matter of Gu Zijia's future. He did not want to jeopardize anything. Is it a man or a woman? Di Fui asked. The firmament stone answered, it should be a man. Di Fui frowned. A man? Was the Lord jealous? Di Fui, you only have 3 months left. It's not necessary to be jealous, right? The firmament stone carefully said, My lord, this interim lord has been chosen by the upper bound. His skills should be very strong, so you just need to teach him the key tasks of the role. For example, the way of observing the stars and controlling the various mysterious lands. The firmament stone talked a lot, but Di Fui only glanced at it coldly. Is this person Long Moyen? The firmament stone was shocked and blurted, How did you know that? Di Fui turned and left. There were not many things in this world that could be hidden from him. He had kept an eye on Long Moyen for a long time. This person rarely showed up in public and never got involved in any political battles. His skills were not too high, but now too low either. He did not like to fight with people, but he had never lost a battle. Furthermore, this person seemed to have upgraded his spiritual power recently. Di Fui guessed that he came from the upper bound, but since he did not interfere with anything, Di Fui was too lazy to care about him. When necessary, Di Fui was quite good at entertaining people who came from different places, as long as they did not pose a threat to this continent. Of course, he had spies that helped him to keep an eye on these people. For example, Long Moyen was now living in the vicinity of Yueming City in the Haoyue Kingdom. Outside of Yueming City was the Guangming Mountain that had one of Gu Zijia's temples. According to the direction in which the colorful lights were emitted, it was the direction of Yueming City, where Long Moyen was located. He never expected that this person was the interim lord. It seemed that he was also very interested in Gu Shijio. Di Fui had a strange look on his face, and it seemed like he was planning something. He could teach all his skills to Long Moyen, but he would also put a spell on him so that he had to hand over the power when Gu Shijio returned and could not act unfavorably on her, of course. He was not jealous. He was not qualified to be jealous now. But he did feel envious of Long Moyen as he could stay together with Gu Shijio when the time came. The firmament stone hesitantly wandered around him. It continuously flashed different colored lights. Di Fui casually asked it, "What do you want to say?" The firmament stone replied, "You have to promise not to shoot me. Then I will say it." Di Fui took a look at it, and the firmament stone carefully shrank back. Di Fui had sensed that this stone was going to sprinkle salt on his wound, but he still wanted to know what it had to say. "Say it. Actually, I will say a bit first. I heard it from somewhere, so I don't guarantee that it is the truth. I heard that if you did not intercept, my master and Long Moyen should be a pair by now. Long Moyen would be assisting my master by her side for thousands of years and become the perfect match that everyone would envy." Di Fui's face was pale. The firmament stone did something worse than he expected. The firmament stone basically inserted a knife into his heart and then sprinkled a handful of salt over it. Gu Shijio would resurrect after 30 or 40 years. At that time, Long Moyen would be in frequent contact with her as an interim lord. If she did not have her memories of this world, she might still become the perfect match with Long Moyen. Di Fui an ache in his chest, especially when he thought of the fact that he had a hand over his skill sets to Long Moyen. Damn, the heavenly laws. Was it trying to mess with him? Di Fui was furious and let out a very strong aura. The firmament stone always paid attention to his emotions and carefully took a few steps backward. It stayed away at a safe distance because it was afraid of what might come to be. Gu Shijio was panting under a big tree. Her eyes were brighter and sharper than the sunset on the horizon. She finally got out of the temple. Moreover, she was out in a physical body. It was an extremely challenging process to get to her current state. For more than a month, she had practiced day to night without any rest. She tried all the methods she knew to quicken the process. Her desire to resurrect had never been so strong. It was a very painful process. It felt like she was suffering in hell every moment, but the thought of wanting to be alive to see him became her mental support. She would do whatever it takes. She was truly desperate to see him. At the very moment when the wizardry barrier was broken, there was a 7-colored ray of light that burst into the sky, which really shocked her. Upon breaking the barrier, she leaned on a big tree to take a break and planned to look for Di Fui right away. She missed him. She missed him like crazy. She gasped for a moment with her eyes closed, and she thought of a plan in her heart. She opened her eyes and was about to act, but suddenly saw something not too far from the tree. There stood a man in a green robe who looked gentle and elegant like a noble young man. She knew this person. It was Long Moyen. He was looking at her with a strange look. Why was he surprised? Was it because Gu Shijio could break the wizardry barrier? "Mr. Long, I didn't expect you to be here too." Gu Shijio already knew that she was now in the Haoyue kingdom. It was the domain of Qianlingyu. Why would Long Moyen be here? Was he just passing by? She quickly observed Long Moyen and found that Long Moyen was still in shock. He was holding a flower and seemed to be wanting to give it to Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio knew that Di Fui did not disclose her death to the public. Most people still did not know that she had died. Although Gu Shijio was eager to learn why Long Moyen was in shock, she was anxious to find Di Fui. After she greeted Long Moyen, she immediately turned and wanted to leave. Long Moyen finally regained his senses and stepped forward. He intentionally blocked her way. "Shijio, it is rare to meet you. Shall we go and have a drink?" It was common courtesy for old friends to have tea together after a long time apart. However, Gu Shijio was not in the mood, so she waved her hand to kindly reject. "I am sorry. I have an urgent matter to attend to. We will gather again in the future." Shijio, wait. I have something to say to you about Celestial Masters Wa. That stopped Gu Shijio dead in her tracks. Her heart jumped as she turned to face Long Moyen. What about him? Long Moyen sighed. This is not a suitable place to tell you. Let's find a place to talk, shall we? Before Gu Shijio could answer, Long Moyen interrupted. Don't worry. It won't take too much of your time. 1 hour is enough. After all, Gu Shijio had been stuck in the temple here for so long. She had not heard any news about Di Fui lately, so she had no idea where to look for him. Now that Long Moyen had some information, she wished to hear it. It was only an hour, thus she nodded. All right. Long Moyen was relieved, and he led the way. Let's go. He then turned and walked toward the mountains. Gu Shijio was surprised. Where do you want to take me? That's my home. Gu Shijio frowned at his response. You have settled down here? Long Moyen said with a smile. Just recently. It could be a temporary thing, but I like the scenery here. This count had always liked to travel the world. He was known for changing his home several times based on his mood. Gu Shijio had heard about him, so she did not feel that anything was out of the ordinary. Long Moyen's residence was a bamboo house. It was built in the middle of the mountain. Coincidentally, it was only 3 or 4 miles away from Gu Zijia's temple. The surrounding area was full of bamboo forests. When the wind blew in the mountains, the bamboo leaves creaked and created some soft music. There were some herbs planted around the fences of the bamboo house. There were banana trees present as well, and several farm tools were placed against the wall of the house. The scenery was splendid. Long Moyen stood in front of the bamboo house in a green robe. It was indeed a picturesque sight. Shijio, this is where I live. Do you like it? Gu Shijio looked at him and then looked at the surrounding environment. She nodded in response. It looks quite harmonious. Although the place looked great, it made Gu Shijio reflect on her past in an odd way. When she was an assassin, she thought of living in seclusion, and her dream residence was quite similar to this. By right, she should like this place very much. But at this moment, when she really stood here, she did not have any feelings at all. She did not hate it, but did not like it either. Thus, she just merely gave a generic response. Long Moyen tried to pry. Is it your dream home? Gu Shijio raised her eyebrows. She half-heartedly and half-jokingly said, Mr. Long, this is your home, not mine. It is not important whether I like it or not. What did his house have to do with her? Long Moyen looked down. I did hope you would like it. Gu Shijio was not in the mood to entertain him. You should hope that your future wife likes it, not a mere passerby like me. Long Moyen looked straight into her eyes. Shijio, I have found Chong Sheng. Gu Zijia's heart raced at that very instant. Huh? Long Moyen stared at her. Shijio, do you still want to hide it from me at this moment? She did not expect him to recognize her. Gu Shijio raised her eyebrows, but she did not deny it anymore. Mr. Long, I am sorry. I did hide my identity from you, and Chong Sheng is my nickname. However, when I met you, we were just acquaintances. We had no deep friendship. Gu Shijio was already troubled by her previous relationship, and naturally, she did not want to get involved in any other relationship, especially at this time. Gu Shijio made that crystal clear to Long Moyen. Long Moyen was visibly disappointed. He shook his head in dismay, but simultaneously waved his hand. In an instant, there was a red mud stove in sight. There was a teapot placed on the stove, and water was boiling in the teapot. He then placed a set of bamboo teacups on the table. It seemed like he was going to brew some tea. His posture was quite elegant and reminded her of Di Fui. Gu Shijio was understandably impatient today. Mr. Long, didn't you say that you have something to tell me about Celestial Masters Wa? Long Moyen's grip on the teacup grew firm at her response. He naturally saw her urgency, but he did not say anything. Instead, he prepared a cup of tea for her and sighed. Shijio, you are too anxious. Come, let's drink a cup of tea first. Gu Shijio glanced at the cup and picked it up. The tea was fragrant and coupled with the bamboo fragrance from the environment. It could make people feel calm. Unfortunately, Gu Shijio could not stay calm now. Shijio, do you believe in God's will? Long Moyen suddenly asked. What if I believe, and what if I do not? Gu Shijio asked him back. She seemed to be a bit thirsty and took a sip of tea. Long Moyen looked at her. Shijio, do you know, I was so excited when I first met you. I have been looking for you for so many years. To find you, I even refused an arrangement by God. Was he trying to confess? Gu Shijio took another sip of tea and tried to end the conversation. Maybe you should accept God's will for you then. Anyway, his destined partner would never be her. Long Moyen smiled. Yes, I should have accepted God's arrangement. I almost missed a good marriage. Later, I finally understood. So I came here. I stayed here and waited for my destined partner. Gu Shiju seemed relieved and smiled. Your destined partner stays in this mountain? Long Moyen looked into the distance this time. Yes, in this mountain, she was trapped here because she violated God's will. Thus, she was trapped here as her punishment. She should be able to get out of her punishment after 38 years. But this girl is always exceptional. She got rid of the trouble early. Gu Zijia's face changed slightly, and her fingers tightened on the cup. Of course, she knew the hidden meaning behind Long Moyen's words. Her heart sank. When she was trapped, the voice also said that she would be stuck for 38 years. It also noted that it was according to God's will. Now, Long Moyen also said the same thing. She bit her lips, and her eyes flashed. Mr. Long, who are you? I am your destined partner. Long Moyen smiled mildly, with a strong force that could not be rejected. Shijio, we are the perfect match according to God's will, which means I am your fiancé and will accompany you for the rest of your life. Gu Shijio was stunned. She could not believe that she was meant to be trapped there and was even predestined to be engaged to another man. That was ridiculous. She smiled and began to judge him with a sharp gaze. What kind of relationship do you have with the person who trapped me here? Gu Shijio was now wondering if Long Moyen was the culprit who planned all the mischievous incidents. However, only someone with level 10 or above spiritual power could create the wizardry barrier she was trapped inside before. In fact, Long Moyen only possessed a level 9 spiritual power. Long Moyen sighed. Shijio, you've got me wrong. I have nothing to do with the one who trapped you here. I came here because I have to obey a heavenly order. I thought I would need to wait for 38 years here, but I don't believe in any heavenly arrangement. Gu Shijio interrupted him with a sarcastic smile. Thus, we are not meant to be together. You're not my destined fiancé. Excuse me, Prince Long. I have something to do. See you. She would not believe in any heavenly arrangement. F*CK, the heavenly arrangement. She could only allow one man in her heart. All she wanted to do now was to see that man. She wanted to see him so badly that it was driving her crazy. She got up and was ready to teleport away because she did not want to continue talking to him. However, Long Moyen quickly pulled her sleeve. Shijio, are you not keen to know more about my background? Long Moyen felt numbness at his palm, and Gu Zijia's sleeve suddenly slipped away out of his palm at the next second. When he lifted his head again, Gu Shijio was looking at him with her lips pursed. Icily, she fixed her gaze at him and responded, No. Long Moyen was getting impatient now, too. Could you just listen to me? I've told you, am not interested to know about heavenly laws or any heavenly arrangements. Gu Shijio was lazy to listen to his crap and immediately teleported away. Bang! She crashed into a bamboo. The bamboo was shaking and almost shattered into 2 pieces. Gu Shijio frowned. Was her teleportation not working? Or was something wrong with the bamboo forest? Gu Shijio slowly got up and looked at Long Moyen. What have you done? To her surprise, Long Moyen could set up such a powerful wizardry barrier. Long Moyen glimpsed at her as he stood there. Shijio, can you just listen to me? Gu Shijio slightly twitched her lips. Fine, go ahead. She did not walk back, but leaned against the bamboo and played with a few bamboo leaves. Long Moyen sighed in frustration. Shijio, I come from the upper bound. Gu Shijio remained expressionless, but she did respond. The same place where Fairy Queen Li came from? Long Moyen paused. Normally, Ordinary people would naturally kneel and greet people from the upper bound because they would feel the other party had an extremely noble identity. However, since Fairy Queenly made a mess here, the reputation of the upper bound had been ruined. Hence, people from this continent did not pay high respect to them anymore. Shijio am different from her. In fact, she has made some mistakes and been kicked down by the immortals. On the other hand, I'm here with an official order. Unfortunately, my spiritual power was sealed together with some of my memories. Hence, I always thought I was just an ordinary master from a noble family. Only 9 years ago did I get to know my mission. Shijio, I've missed the opportunity to be with you due to my naivety, but it's not too late now. I really didn't expect that my beloved woman would turn out to be my predestined wife. He slowly walked toward Gu Shijio. Shijio, I know there's someone else in your heart, but he is not meant to be with you. Besides that, he has limited time to stay by your side. Why do you need to be so obsessed with him? Gu Shijio narrowed her eyes on Long Moyen. There was a light-filled aura surrounding him right now. Was he prepared to fight with her? He seemed to possess a high spiritual power, much higher than Gu Shijio could pick up from before. Perhaps he was good at concealing his power. Based on their conversation, he did not really care about Fairy Queenly. Perhaps he was even more powerful than Fairy Queenly, and his spiritual power was probably higher than level 10. Gu Shijio immediately sensed her inner power and realized she still possessed a level 10 spiritual power despite her previous calamity. Although she had consumed some of her spiritual power when she tried to break the wizardry barrier earlier. Hence, she felt a little weak at the moment. Unfortunately, Long Moyen was well prepared for this day. He had set a wizardry barrier which could weaken others' power. Besides that, something was wrong with the tea she drank. She realized that she would probably lose if she were to get into a fight with him today. Gu Shijio then glimpsed at him with a frown and asked, "What do you want?" Long Moyen added, "Shijio, I know it's difficult for you to accept me in such a short time. In fact, we have plenty of time. The world would belong to us. They'll help you to manage this continent. In fact, you probably didn't know that I have another identity. What is it? I am a stand-in lord." Long Moyen answered with a tone of arrogance. Indeed, he was the one. Gu Shijio slightly pursed her lips. She recalled the annoying voice in her head did mention about a temporary substitute lord. She remained silent as she fixed her eyes on him. Shijio, both of you disobeyed the heavenly laws. Hence, you received the punishments. Initially, you were supposed to be reborn a few hundred years later. Fortunately for us, Huang Tu built several credit temples for you, and he tried to solve many problems for the people in order to accumulate blessings for you. Therefore, you got to come back earlier. However, it would still take you 38 years to come back to life, while Huang Tu only had 3 months left to live. He could not wait until you were reborn to pass down all the responsibilities. Hence, the immortals appointed me to be the stand-in lord, so that I can take over everything and rule the world on behalf of him until you came back. By that time, they'll need to let you succeed the throne. Gu Shijio still remained silent with an expressionless face. Long Moyen continued, I also just got to know about the heavenly order in my dream recently. That's why I'm staying here. Firstly, I'm here to take care of you. Secondly, I'm waiting for Huang Tu to find me. I think he should have known about my new identity by now. Hence, he will definitely come one of these few days. Gu Shijio chuckled. How do you know he will come? According to how well I know him, he doesn't take the heavenly laws seriously. Long Moyen looked at her with a smile. Oh, really? Suddenly, Gu Zijia's heart skipped a beat. Indeed, Di Fui always disobeyed the heavenly laws. However, this could affect Gu Zijia's future. She seemed to recall the scene when she last saw Di Fui. He looked so lonely when he played the flute for her dead body the entire night. Her heart was in pain, and her eyes were wet. He could really do anything for her. Long Moyen noticed her eyes were red, even though she remained silent. Although he had no idea what was on her mind, he knew there was no one else who could affect her emotions like that man. He suddenly pointed to the sky. Look, Shijio. Gu Shijio looked at her surroundings and saw a sunset the size of a bowl. The sky was getting noticeably darker with a few orange clouds still floating in the sky. The sunset is very beautiful, but it doesn't last, just like Huang too. Why do you have to be so obsessed with him? Am your sunshine, am brighter than the sunset. Gu Shijio remained silent while she was playing with a bamboo shoot. It was really awkward for her to listen to him expressing his feelings like a poet. The bamboo shoot in her hand was very young to the extent she could squeeze some juice out of it. Shijio, the animals know where is good to be their habitat. Hence, you should know who is best for you. We can go everywhere together. We can rule the world together and be at the top of the world together if you're willing to be with me. We can spend time together every day and enjoy the wonders of life. We are a perfect match. Long Moyen began to create a sweet dream for her. Gu Shiju looked at him with her head slanted to one side. Did you just say we can go everywhere together and rule the world together? I'm the official lord. You're just a substitute lord. The sky cannot accommodate two suns, and there are never two kings in a country. Long Moyen paused for a second. Shijio, we will be a team if we get married. Hence, it does not matter who is the official lord. Besides that, you're a girl. You shouldn't burden yourself with these responsibilities. As your husband, I should share your burden. I know you have no interest in power. It'll help you manage everything, and you only have to enjoy the credit. Let me handle the execution part. He sounded like he was going to work and fund the family, and she could just spend her days relaxing and enjoying life. However, Gu Shijio is not that type of person per se. Indeed, she had no interest in power. However, that did not mean she was a complete idiot on politics. Mankind was greedy. Regardless of whether they were relatives or royal family members, they could kill each other for power. A family was just a joke when it comes to power, not to mention the throne of the Lord. Prince Long already could not let go of the power even before he succeeds the role as a substitute lord. If she were to be reborn 38 years later, he would have already abused his power. By that time, how would he hand over the throne? Perhaps many disasters would have been created by him. In fact, he might even kill his wife to rule the world. Gu Shijio silently sensed her body again, and she realized the poison in the drink she had earlier had been eliminated out from her system while she was playing with the bamboo shoot. Long Moyen was still busy trying to convince her. Shijio, we are meant to be together. We are a perfect match. Gu Shijio suddenly interrupted him. I'm the one in charge of my life, not the immortals, and certainly not you. I never believed in predestined arrangements. Even if I only managed to spend one day with him, I would only be with him. I wouldn't love you even if you could be alive as long as the world exists. Long Moyen frowned because he never expected her to be so stubborn even after talking to her for so long. So, until now you still don't believe in the predestined arrangement? No. Gu Shijio answered with an icy tone. I believe that we can always beat fate as long as we try our best. According to heavenly laws, I was supposed to be reborn after 38 years, but I'm already here now, right? Long Moyen was speechless. What she said was true. Hence, Long Moyen ran out of words all of a sudden. In fact, he could not figure out this lady. She had disobeyed the heavenly laws and neglected the immortals several times. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.